I guess we can take it in about 10 minutes. We can cover it. Okay, so this one is about shared vertica for COSO and OBA. For everyone who doesn't know me, I'm Eli from the technical success team. I'm working mostly on the OBA part. So this is why I would like to talk about this issue, because I've received several times requests for this exact thing to get COSO and OBA to work in the same vertica. So let's talk about it. And from what I saw from Gary's presentation, we're going to continue exactly from where he left off. You were talking about this slide. And as Gary mentioned here, you can see the directions moving forward from the previous, what we had previously in OBA 305 and what we will go to next. So first we can see that on the left side, the main problem is that it's not really COSO. It's not really collect once, store once. Because if you look at the bottom, then you can see that metrics, for example, are currently being saved both or collected both by the OBA collector into the vertica of OBA, and also collected for COSO and stored on the COSO vertica. And in many of the cases, for POCs at least, we got requests that why are we using two different verticas? So there is a reason for it, but it's still very problematic for the user, and that's why we are going forward in the next version towards having a single vertica. And there we will also solve the problem of collect once and store once. That will have it as it should be. But again, this is only the directions for the next version. The question is, what do we do now? If you have a POC, let's say in the next month or so, what do you do then? So there is another option. The problem is it's not supported for production, but for POC purposes, it should be good enough. And this is how it looks like. So basically here you have OBA on the left and the COSO UI on the right. And as you can see here, they're all going to the same vertica cluster. The difference is that they have two different schemas. One is the OPSB default on the left side, and on the right side we have the schema used for COSO, and they're all running on the same ItemDB, on the same database. Now, the solution here is one that provides you the ability to use only a single vertica cluster. Okay, so if it's a vertica, if it's a POC, you want to set up only one vertica server, then it solves the problem. But you're still collecting once and storing, collecting twice and storing twice, because we have two separate schemas, and the metrics will be collected through OBA collectors to the OBA schema, and also by the AMC will be sent to the COSO schema. Another thing I'd like to mention here is that, again, it's not something that is supported, as mentioned here, it's not supported for production. So this is only good enough for POCs for now. If you want to provide such a solution for production, then if I go back to the previous slide, then you'll have to wait for the 2021-05, where it should be supported. So back to this, how can you exactly make this happen? So there are only a few notes you need to heed in order to make this work. First of all, I'm mentioning again, this is not officially supported in 2020-10. So it can be used for POCs, but that's it. Currently, it's implemented only at R&D. And we've already tested it also at some customer POCs. And the reason why it's not supported is because of performance, mainly because until now, and if I go back to here, then until now, if you have two different schemas, and let's say that OBA overloads a lot of usage from Vertica, then COSO will get choked up, and the same can go the other way. So since we want to avoid that, and yes, it can happen if you have a lot of data, then it will happen. And because of that, it's not supported. So this is also something that you need to note in POCs, because if you have a lot of data and it's just a single node Vertica, then it might happen to you. So don't use it if you have too much data, only if you have a small amount of data. The next note is about using a COSO database. So you can use the ItemDB that I've mentioned earlier. Once you have COSO set up and you have ItemDB, then only you should install OBA. During the installation of OBA, you need to provide the database name. By default, it's OPSB. So instead, you will use ItemDB. And then inside of it, during installation, it will also create the schema for OBA. It will also ask you for the name of the schema. You can leave it default, and then it would use OPSA default. Okay, do not use the same schema as you have right now for COSO. First of all, because it wasn't tested. And second, because when OBA has access to a certain schema, it will check on all the tables in that schema and might cause problems. So you don't want to use the same schema for both, at least not now, not in this version. The last note is about security. So Vertica usually is configured to use a secured connection, TLS. And if you have it configured as mandatory, so you can use TLS both for COSO and OBA, but only in server mode. And that's okay because it's the default one and it's the one I think currently documented to use. And server mode basically means that the certificate will be checked by the server. The server will check the certificates of the client, but not vice versa. And mutual mode also means that the clients would check the certificates of the server, and that is not supported in OBA. So the best way, of course, would be to not use a secured connection. So if it's for POC purposes, then I recommend simply not using a secured connection. And then it would work also. And this was tested only with a Vertica that was not secured. And OBA also was using a plain connection. So both OBA and COSO require DB-admin user access to Vertica, but OBA also requires it in the post-install phase. That's it. That's basically how you do it. If you have any questions, please bring them up now. As I've said, this is a short session. And again, the direction here is to allow you to have something for now, only for POC purposes. And moving forward, you will have the full solution. So any questions?
No.
This is Fred Schott. I have a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
If you go to slide number, oh, well, you know your slide better than I do, but basically, what if I have an OPSA running and I already have the OPSA default? Can I configure it the other way instead of building, like have the ITOM instance configured on the OPSA?
Well, it's a bit of a problem. Let me see. You're talking, but still on this option, right? Of using OBA 305. that has OPSA DB, and now you would like to
plug
configure
in item DB on the top of it.
Yeah, so you want to use two databases on the same Vertica cluster. Okay, it's not tested. I haven't tried that, but theoretically it should work. It should be possible.
Now let us assume we have what you suggested, and let us take production mode. If you go up like in 2021-05, if I connect from a bring your own BI, or so basically BVD, in our case, when you connect to the data source, I'll be able to see those, the item and the OPSA tables, and I can mix and match what I want.
Okay, so for BVD, it's a bit more complicated. It will require some additional work, so I don't think that would be available in 2021-05. For example, you won't be able to connect to the OBA analysis data, like anomalies or whatever.
Got it.
You will be able to connect, of course, to the COSO data. The problem is that we still need adapters to be created from BVD to the OBA data. That's what's still missing. So that's only specifically for BVD. In general, if you connect to Vertica with your own BI, bring your own BI, and you need to implement your own way to connect to the data, then yes, it is possible. I mean, it would be on the same Vertica database, and it should work. So it depends.
Thanks. And the last question I have, and I don't know if this would be in and out, in 2021-05, but the mesh up of the UI that Gary talked about. So you had the bottom section coming from OBA. Can you just decompose the URL and call it from BVD? So the idea is to show OBA data. And what I'm interested in is really logs. I don't care about the agent and site scope and those. I just want to log data. And I want to be able to reconstruct the URL, feed it to BVD, and show me the nice graph that helped me sell.
So you want to see the OBA UI within BVD? That's it?
Yes, without, as Gary mentioned, I just don't want to repeat him, without the headers and whatever, just the, the data piece of it, as you have it here on the right, on the bottom.
Yeah, also I did not check. Well, it's still being developed, but it should work. I mean, once you provide the URL, then it should open wherever you want. It doesn't matter if it's in the browser under OBM or BVD or whatever. It should work, yeah.
Okay. Well, this is all I have. Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. Any other questions?
On the next page or slide, the other one, can the same thing to be done or is it possible to be done with the OBR? I mean, it's because I see two vertical databases looking at two different tables, and is it possible to have basically or do the same thing with the OBR? Or any third party that they want to bring in the data the same way.
Well, again, it's not something that was tested. It's not by me. I don't know if anyone else did. I know that OBR is using Vertica quite extensively, so there's a higher probability that it would cause performance issues.
Yeah.
But in theory, yes, it should work the same way. You have a separate schema for OBR. It should work the same.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? If not, then that's it. Alexei, back to you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Eli, and thank you, Gary. It was fantastic to have you here. And we are